Good afternoon, everyone. We will now call the December 11th, 2025 Policy Review Committee meeting to order. Mr. Wilborn, will you please take the roll?
Yes, representing Educational District 5 and Board Chair, and also present via Teams, we have Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 7 and Chairman of the Policy Committee, we have Mr. Alfred Shibby Brooks.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, we have Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present.
Also present, we have Board Member Jessica Johnson, and also new to the Policy Committee, we have Ms. Brooke Smith, a Student Advisory Delegate, and also from KIPP Atlanta Collegiate present. Chairman Brooks, you have a quorum.
Can we get a hand clap for our student board rep, though? I'm excited. Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the November 11, 2025 Policy Review Committee minutes.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown, seconded by Board Chair Mitchell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the December 11, 2025 Policy Review Committee meeting agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown, seconded by Board Chair Mitchell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now review the policies on the agenda. Ms. Carolyn Barnett, will you please present the first policy?
Thank you so much, and please provide me with some grace, being that this is my first time with you
welcome.
all. Thank you so much.
Welcome Ms. Carolyn for her first policy meeting. It's a lot of newness.
All the newness. So today we have 4 policies that we will discuss. These are policies that came before the full board for first read in December, and we're bringing them back today. So hopefully they will be able to go to the full board in January the 12th. So I will begin with policy JB, student attendance. This is the policy that required board update and revisions to align with the recent legislative actions by Georgia General Assembly. This policy was presented again for first read for the full board on December the 3rd. Revisions included clear statements on compulsory school attendance. That is for ages 6 through 16 for 180 days. You will see that. And then also, it included the definition for chronic absenteeism, which is missing 10% or more of enrolled days during a school year for any reason. And this is responsibilities for schools with high absenteeism rate. Other clarifications was around school systems should provide notice to parent, guardian, or other persons who has control or charge a student hereafter. These are languages that was added in. When the student has 5 unexcused absences, the notice will outline the penalty and consequences of such absences, and that each subsequent absence will constitute a separate offense. After 2 reasonable attempts to notify the parent, the school system will send written notice via first-class mail or via certified mail, return receipt requested, and prior to any action, to commence judicial proceedings to impose a penalty on the parent for failing to comply with the compulsory attendance law. The school system will notify the parent by certified mail, return receipt requested, and each school shall provide the parent of each student enrolled with a written summary of possible consequences and penalties for failing to comply with compulsory attendance by September 1st of each school year, or within 30, that probably should be within 30 school days.
That's what it says on my side.
Of students' enrollment. The parent will be asked to sign a statement indicating receipt of such written statement of possible consequences and penalties. In addition, students age 10 or or older by September 1st will be asked to sign a statement indicating receipt of written statement of possible consequences for non-compliance with this policy. We are asking for this policy to be approved for final reading at the next board meeting.
And just for clarification, these are additions to the policy that are required by the state, correct?
Yes.
To be in alignment with state policy. All right, do we have any questions or comments? Yes, Board Member Briscoe Brown.
On the second page, in the long edition, the paragraph that starts "the school system shall provide" is still missing the word "notice" after the word "provide," which we discussed last month. So if we could just clean that up before, in the first line of the third paragraph.
On this copy, Madam Board Member, it does indicate that the school system shall provide notice.
Okay, we don't have that on these. This is, that's not on this copy.
Yes, I will,
Okay, thank you then.
Yes.
I'm glad it's been done somewhere.
yes.
If we can make absolutely certain, I'm not sure what the difference is between that and that, but the one that needs to go
Before the
board
board, yes.
in January and the one that needs to go in assembly is the correct one.
Yes, ma'am. We'll note that.
Okay, and, all right, then maybe I need to see if there are any other,
Yeah,
sorry.
this won't be the same when you're not here, I'm telling you.
Yes.
This won't be the same.
I will say, I continue to have some concerns about the notice requirement and the
Certified mail part.
lengths to which we should be going to notify parents that their children are not in school. I feel like that is the core of these changes, that we need to let parents know when their children aren't in school. And we need to reach out to them. With young children, we need to figure out what's going on because that's largely on the parents. And with older children, we need to make sure that the parents know that their children aren't in school. And in any case, we need to make them part of the team to solve the problem. So I appreciate the language about two reasonable attempts. I just hope we will make significant attempts. I also kind of question why in the last sentence of that third paragraph it says via first-class mail or via certified mail. Maybe, and not imposing this, but a suggestion is that when I was practicing law full-time, we always sent notices via first-class mail and certified mail, because if they didn't pick up the certified mail, then they would still, if the first-class mail didn't come back to us, we could still claim notice given and received. And a lot of people won't go to the post office and pick up the certified mail, or can't go to the post office and pick up that certified mail. But if we send it as first class and certified mail, then the chances of one or the other of those getting to them is better. And if the first class mail doesn't come back to us, then we can reasonably assume that it was received by the parent. But again, I think we need to remember that this is not check boxes. This is actually making attempts to engage parents over absenteeism.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm curious with our Everyday Labs Pro program that we have. That automatically sends notifications, correct? And my assumption is those would be first class mail notifications, not certified, if it's automated.
I can check on that. I'm not for sure.
And then they would also send a digital form to the parent as well?
Yes.
Does it behoove us in policy to say that we will electronically send the form via email, that we would send first-class mail, and that we would also send certified mail? Would that satisfy showing that we're going above and beyond to make communication efforts?
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think from my perspective, it's been expressed that the reason for the changes is to make sure that we're showing parents, or that we're making sure that parents are getting notified. And I think that through email, which is something that is portable, like everybody has access to it easily accessible, even faster than mail, I think email will be important too.
I appreciate that. Are there any other, from a student perspective, are there other forms of communication that you feel are effective beyond email, beyond snail mail?
As far as attendance, the platform is going out of my head. Infinite Campus, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you always get notifications when you're missing school.
That I am aware of. Not going there today. Okay, so we're hearing Infinite Campus is helpful, email is definitely helpful, and then certified mail. So I guess my ask is, because I know this is to get in alignment with the state, is it still okay for us to add on top of what they have? Like, we're always
yes.
able to do that, right? As long
Yes,
as we
sir.
don't do less.
As long as we meet the minimums.
Yes.
One thing I would say, just as your little lawyer here, not everyone has access or is all that
Tech savvy.
tech savvy. So, if we want to add electronic notifications, whether that be text or Infinite Campus or email or whatever, can we put in where feasible electronic notice?
I like that. Is there any feedback on that addition?
I think as many different ways as we can try for a parent or grandparent who doesn't read well, calling them on the phone the old-fashioned way where you pick it up and you dial it, as opposed to texting it or emailing or sending a letter, might be the best way. I know there are principals in this system who, when a child is chronically absent, literally go and knock on the door of the home and say, why aren't you in school? Why is your child not in school? I think that we need to be focused less on checking off the boxes required by the state and more on making attempts to actually make contact with an adult in the home and say, this is a problem, what are you and I together going to do about it?
Yeah. In the good words of Dr. Johnson, we got to get back to the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the phone call idea as well. So I think, to your point, when feasible, stating that we'll use digital virtual means to communicate. I even think adding that we'd be willing to make a phone call is something that maybe we should add in there. And yeah. You got something, Dr. Johnson?
No, I agree, and I think to the point, just more of a broader mind. This is the policy to fulfill state requirement, but the practice that you will see in most of our schools are trying all means to get in front of a parent and to get students in school, to the point.
I would agree. Are there any other comments or added commentary from the committee on this one? Board Chair Mitchell, do you have anything that you wanted to add to the conversation at all?
No, everything that you are dialoguing about is right on point. I think we need to be flexible as well in how we communicate with parents, not just to check off the boxes, but make sure by any means, all means, that we have established some type of connection and communication with the parents. So I don't know if there's a space within the policy to just use some of the verbiage that you said about electronic communication, i.e., for like example, it could be email, it could be text message, it could be Infinite Campus, just if you wanted to put them in it as an example, but not limited to the other measures that we're taking to communicate with parents, phone calls, home visits, whatever it might be. So I don't know if that's too much clarification, but I just want to make sure that, you know, we cover all our bases and how we communicate. That's all.
Imagine we were too clear. Board Member Johnson, did you have anything that you wanted to add? All right, I'm gonna take silence as we're good. All right, anything else, Ms. Carolyn?
Yeah, so after we add in the language, let me clearly ask if you want it to state IE, or if you want the, like the electronic, the Infinite Campus, the phone, do you want that to be spelled out as the 2 touch points, or did you want to just see IE, all of these different mechanisms where feasible?
I think, and it would be,
i.e., all the mechanisms are feasible.
it would actually be EG and not IE,
Example.
E.g.
as, because
Well,
that's-
e.g.
I love the clarifications.
But yeah, I think listing those as as examples.
Okay.
Would be, is good, and that doesn't foreclose the possibility.
Right.
of,
Something else.
You know, again, you know, going out and knocking on the door.
Okay.
Or calling and saying, you know, can we meet at a coffee shop, or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but we don't want to eliminate any possibilities. Another way to do that would be to say including but not limited to.
Yeah.
And may I recommend that we not call out Infinite Campus? That's a product that we
We
may
might change,
Right.
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 So that's a
Student.
an information system.
There's like email, EG, email, text, phone calls, home visits, et cetera.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, keep it open and flexible for us, but also kind of name the extent that we're willing to go. I love it.
Okay.
And I think we can pass that on?
Yes, let's pass that on. And are we in support of moving that forward
Yes.
to the board?
Yeah.
Yes. I am.
Perfect. My first final approval.
I'm with that.
Hey.
Okay. First. So our next policy for review is policy DJEA, Purchasing Authority. This is another policy that was presented for first reading for the full board on December the 3rd. This is another policy that is coming to us through legislative actions that increases the threshold for purchases of any item or group of items with a value of $10,000 to $99,999.99, may be made at the school department level, and it also discusses public works contracts. And the bid requirements increase the threshold for competitive bidding for public works contracts for $100K to $250,000. And I will read the language that, so on the second page, you will see that it discusses all purchases and contracts for goods and services except for those excluded in Section 5 of this policy. And you will see the change from $10,000 to the reference around $99,999.99. And then B also talks about the changes for public works contracts. And then when we move down to 7, you will see the change from capital project to public works and the increase in value to $250,000. Again, this policy went to first full board read in December, and the ask for today is that the policy be approved for final reading at our next board meeting.
Thank you. And just before we start, I just want to clarify and question that all of the changes that are being suggested are to put us in alignment with state law.
With the legislature, yes, sir.
Thank you. I just asked that, I like to make that disclosure so that folks don't feel like, why are y'all changing these numbers? And that it's known it's not arbitrary, but a requirement that we do so. Board Member Briscoe Brown?
Just so y'all know, you're gonna need somebody to proofread once I'm gone.
Uh-oh.
In 6B, and I waited until I could see it up there as well. It says Public Works contracts defined as TBD. We need to eliminate, to eliminate the TBD. I do think we can do that.
We are going to find a statutory definition of public works construction contract.
Thank you, and
and
plug
insert
that in before final
Absolutely.
approval.
I
Good.
saw that too. I'm like, oh no, that can't be.
Other than that, we've discussed this at great length, and I think I'm fine, I'm completely fine with it.
Yes. Student Rep Smith, do you have anything that you would like to add to this or any feedback?
I do have a question. So I noticed that on the first page, we're removing the word "the" in front of Atlanta Public Schools. And then on the second page at 5, all purchases and contracts for goods and services shall be made through the APS competitive process. So I was wondering, should that "the" be removed, or is the APS competitive process like a separate?
I think there we're talking about the process, and on the first page, we're using a formality that we just don't use anymore. We say Atlanta Public Schools, not the Atlanta Public Schools or the APS. That was the convention. Oh my goodness, this one was originally adopted in 1985. But that was the convention that we used in the past. But I think when we're talking about the process, it's not referring to Atlanta Public Schools.
Yeah.
It's referring to the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
understood.
But good call. Good
We
question.
might have our proofreader. I don't know. I don't know.
Just let her take over the proofreading.
We're in good hands. We're in good hands. And 85 was almost a good year. I was 1 when they made this policy. My Lord.
Who was in law school?
I was gonna say.
We couldn't all be an 80s baby. Okay, so yes, I believe, other than the feedback to clarify, I guess get rid of the acronym TBD.
TBD, yes.
And then I believe there was another change. Board Member Briscoe Brown brought up a clarifying definition for public works, I believe was what it was.
I think that was the same one.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other feedback? Board Chair Mitchell, Board Member Johnson, anyone on the dais? Anything else to be added to this one?
I don't have any feedback from this. It's in alignment with the state, so I'm good with it. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Barnett?
Are you good for final approval?
Are we okay with moving this forward for final approval at the January meeting?
I'm okay with that.
I am as well.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, our 2 for 2. I'm winning. So our next policy for review actually also came up for a first read for the full board on December the 3rd. Policy DJEAC, and this is purchasing or credit card use. This policy was more to align, to accurately reflect our practices around purchasing and credit card use. It clarifies policy language regulating the use of district purchasing and credit cards. We took out some of the language around users of purchasing cards should consult with the finance division with any questions about purchasing rules and restrictions. We also added language when it goes down to the following types of purchases are strictly prohibited by Atlanta Public Schools, where you see number 8. It clarifies what's meant by clothing, describing unless they are directly related to instructional purposes. Example, lab coats for science lab, uniforms for student programs with the documents to support the intended instructional purpose, or funded through special revenue. We move down to 10. We struck the language travel-related expenses with the exception of, and just put in except for. And also took the language out about card holders must approve and reconcile. We took out the language around the purchasing specialist or designee shall periodically conduct quarterly monitoring. And that was for this particular policy. We're asking for this policy to go before the board for final approval at our next board meeting.
I have a question.
Yes?
So why take out purchasing card specialist or
Designate.
card holders or designate or card holders having to report their transactions on a monthly basis?
Nina, would you like to?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
I was asking why was the language removed around card holders having to approve all purchases on a monthly basis, or a purchasing card specialist or designee periodically monitoring purchases?
I'd have to ask our procurement division about that. I know this revision was approved for first read by the board at the December meeting.
Yes.
So it was presented to the policy committee at the last policy committee meeting, but I have to get with the procurement on that. Thanks.
Thank you. I was just wondering.
Thank you.
I think that's a good question.
I mean, it may be something as simple as we don't have an employee title as purchasing card specialist anymore, and that people are wearing a lot of hats.
I do think we may have talked about this, and I seem to remember a conversation that a lot of this is automated now. And so we
Lawson
don't
and other
need
systems.
an individual who does it manually because it's done
Has an automated
by
process.
the
By
automated
the
system.
automated
Yeah.
system.
There's a computer that does it instead of a person.
Yeah, we have a system called TravelXM apparently. Ms. Murray is letting me know that apparently does that work. So we don't have a purchasing card specialist anymore.
I do have one question. That's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And I didn't catch this before, I don't think. In the third paragraph on the first page, where it describes select individuals whose transaction limit is above the $2,000 threshold, are those the only ones who would ever have a transaction limit above the $2,000 threshold? Because if they're not, then we shouldn't put them in, we should not call them out specifically.
You referenced the third paragraph.
The third paragraph, right in the middle, there shall be a per transaction limit of $2,000, except for select individuals whose transaction limit is above the $2,000 threshold. And then in parentheses, it calls out certain transportation, maintenance, and athletics department officials. Are those the only people who ever get a threshold above $2,000? Because if they are, and we would never give that authorization to anybody else, I'm wondering whether the superintendent, for
Yes.
instance,
That was
has
gonna be my
don't-
question.
above the $2,000 threshold.
I just for the record, I may have a credit card, but I don't have a credit card.
I
It will
understand.
never be used.
But if we're not, if those are not the only people who
You're right.
would ever have that
We
authorization,
should not
then we
limit.
should just take that out and just say, except for select individuals who have approved transaction limit above the $2,000.
Let us double check.
Yes.
Let us double check. I think it's a great point. Let us double check that these three areas that are called out are the only ones that have the authority over 2,000. The thing I will say is any purchase over 2,000 has to have special authorization from the CFO. But to your point, if we're calling out specific groups, we need to make sure those are the only 3 areas that have it. We will double check that.
Okay.
Pretty sure 99%, but I want to be 100.
All right. That being said, we're not proposing that this go up for final read next month, are we? Or were we?
Yes.
All right, so it sounds like we may have to table this until we get clarification. Is
Sure.
that what I'm hearing?
Table until we get clarification on the language around the threshold.
Yeah,
And also,
Particular individuals.
yeah, we'll do that
We'll get that.
and send that to you
So we'll
all.
be good to go if we
Yes,
push it
we'll
to
make
first
sure
read.
you're good to go
Okay.
before,
okay.
well before the end of next week.
And also just clarifying the deleted language on the
Correct.
second page, why that was deleted.
Why that was deleted.
We want to make sure we cover that base.
Student Rep Smith, did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Chair Mitchell, did you have any questions or comments on this one?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I believe then we, upon clarification on the third paragraph, and clarification on the language that was stricken at the end, I guess we're willing to push this towards final read for January.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's like 2 and a possible. All right, our next policy, Ms. Barnett?
So our next policy is JCDAF, use of electronic devices by students. This is another policy that was brought to us for legislative actions around the Distraction-Free Education Act, which requires revision of board policy by banning student access to listed personal electronic devices during the instructional day. On our last review, we took out a lot of the language around the board also supports parents, guardians' right to decide whether to allow their children to possess mobile telephones and other portable electronic devices. We added in the language in accordance with the Distraction-Free Education Act. Students are not permitted to access personal electronic devices, PEDs, while on school grounds during school hours, including but not limited to cell phones, smart watches, tablets, e-readers, headphones, earbuds. We added in, as your conversation, smart glasses, and other devices with functionalities such as wireless communication, internet access, messaging, video recording, gaming, social media access, or data transmission during the school hours. On the next paragraph, you'll see where we added in the language, the use of mobile telephones and other PEDs before or after the school day is a privilege. Took out the language around before and after the official school day. Also added in language around where the policy would apply, and you added in the entire school day, while on school provided transportation, and on school buses. If we scroll down a little, we talk about photographing, audio recording, or videotaping by any means. This also would include on transportation or on school buses. That was added in without the consent of school administrator or designee. We struck out the language around the student or staff member. We also struck out the language, as you can see, on students who violate this policy and the associated regulations shall be deemed to have created a disruption to the instructional environment. We took that out. Moving down, we also took out the language, students may be permitted to turn on and use personal device during the school day as directed by APS employees for instructional purposes. We added in the language, nothing in this policy is intended to interfere with students' access to school equipment provided to students for instructional purposes. Also adding in a student whose individualized education plan an IEP, Section 504 plan, or medical plan explicitly mandates the use of a personal electronic device shall be permitted access to the device as necessary to fulfill the requirements of the respective plan, adding in language, parents wishing to reach their child during school hours should contact their child's school directly.
Can you scroll back up a little bit? Stop. That's good. Thank you. I think, once again, we don't have the most recent version here. I just want to see what this one says.
I have a suggestion. So on the first page in the first paragraph, in the language that was removed after it says portable electronic devices, then there's parentheses to show that PEDs, the acronym, will be used for the rest of it, and then in the new version, there isn't parentheses to show that PEDs or the acronym for personal electronic devices will be used for the rest. So I thought put parentheses. In
This is a child after my own heart.
Yeah. I'm a little less nervous now about the transition. Little less nervous.
Absolutely.
Got a good one. No, that's excellent. So I have some questions as well. I've seen some emails recently from parents regarding we procured a bunch of tablets for kindergartners. Got a lot of feels about that. Most notably, we had parents who said that they don't allow their kids to have tablets at home. But now that we procure tablets at school, they have access to tablets at school. I think where the riff is that I think it's reasonable for folks to understand that if the tablets or Chromebooks or anything is being used for instructional purposes, that absolutely makes sense. However, we also live in a world where I believe some educators may be allowing kids to use tablets for leisure or for recreational time, if you will. I'm wondering if there is a willingness of the committee to put language that district-provided tablets for kindergarten is only for instructional use.
I would speak more broadly and say, if we're going to do it for kindergarten, we should do it
All the way through.
just, district devices are meant for instructional purposes. Like I'm just thinking as you're saying that, I don't think there's any reason why it'd be different in kindergarten than you would expect in 8th or 9th grade, right? Like, but I don't know. I've heard a little bit of that as well, in particular, which I'm not at all unexcited to hear. In particular, just the desire for strong foundational day-to-day instruction. I do think when you get into some of the small groups and things that teachers do, in particular the elementary grade band, sometimes there are curricular resources that allow for more personalization, individualization based on where the student is, but that's not a comprehensive thing that's happening across, across everywhere. So I think that's something we can absolutely look at. I don't know that we need to probably look and see if it's this policy, because this deals with, well, I guess it's electronic devices. So yeah, we can look at that.
Is there also a world where we would be willing to have a conversation on screen time limits for Chromebooks?
Well, I have something to add about the original point about the kindergarteners. So I think a parent who is in this time where so much technology is introduced to children so young and they're like kind of being raised by technology at this point, parents who are taking technology away from kindergarten children are trying to move them away from the instant gratification that comes with that. But I think as far as elementary school level learning, there is the thing, I don't think that like an adjustment to saying that it's only for instructional purposes would ease what the parent is after, because there's leisure mixed in with education in the elementary level. Just thinking of things that I used in elementary school at APS, such as like ABCDYA, or I hope that's the correct website, but like it's gamified
Yeah.
for children to be more, to learn easier. So I don't know if changing that language necessarily eases parents who don't want to have their children having access to tablets.
Yeah, yeah. I have no problem. Look, I remember we used to learn how to type on Mavis Beacon, and that was very gamified. And if you from my generation, you know exactly what that was, right? And that was, the gamified educational programming to me is not the issue. It's kids playing Roblox or other stuff. You know, they're on Steam, they're on whatever. Kind of playing games in the cloud or things like that. That to me is not the intended use, and I think is kind of an affront to the educational purpose or intention. So I think we're saying the same thing. But I just want to be very clear that I'm not opposed to gamified educational programs. It's just the pure gaming for entertainment part that I think, especially for the parent who doesn't want their child to have access, we're almost like circumventing their intention by giving kids access to it in school. So it's something I would like us to be thoughtful about. And I think the same thing reigns true for some of our older kids. I mean, we block the Netflix and things like that, but y'all are savvy and know what VPNs are and know how to get around things when you want to. But I think putting it in policy that our intention is that they only be used for instructional purposes, I think helps also give teachers guidance as well.
Let me start by saying I completely agree with you. I wonder what the reality of that is down on the ground in terms of enforcement. I think those are some not very bright lines. If a teacher allows students to watch an episode of Sesame Street, is that educational? Okay, I think we can accept that Sesame Street is educational, but let's go a little farther. Is Dora the Explorer or Blue's Clues, or, where does the line get drawn? And are we making it impossible for school-level staff to be able to make those distinctions on their own and potentially get in trouble because they thought they made a good call having their kindergartners watch an episode of Blue's Clues?
Yeah, I concur. That's why I think we can speak to the spirit of, because I'm thinking about the policy, the spirit of devices that we're providing to and for schools and their usage. And I think it's the spirit from the teacher in the classroom is for instructional purposes. So I think at minimum and probably maximum right now, we could speak to that in a sentence or framing. And then there's probably broader conversation that we should have, and it may even be admin regulation, where we start to look at any consideration around clarification around, the recommended time per grade band or what have you. Like, because we've had some conversation around that already. So I do think we can make a value statement from the standpoint of we provide the devices not for nothing other than to improve and support instruction. Are they used in other ways? I'm not naive enough to think that's not not the case, but the intent of providing the technology. And so I definitely think we can say that and, kind of go from there.
So do we want to add a sentence right after where it says nothing in this policy is intended to interfere with student access to school equipment provided to students for instructional purposes? We can say such equipment is provided only for instructional purposes and shall not be used for any other purpose.
Yeah, I mean, how about you just say it's provided with the intention for instructional use? And then have the details live in an admin reg?
Yeah.
And then let, our building level principals and our teachers use judgment on.
So such equipment is provided only for instructional
For
purposes.
instructional purpose.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think the main energy is just to be at a place where you're not telling kids, hey, you can go on the tablet and just game for a half hour or something like that. That's, for me, that's the thing too that we're trying to safeguard for. And then what I heard around some conversation around screen time limits on even Chromebooks, am I hearing that? I guess on the administrative side, maybe there's some regulatory conversations or something on you guys' side around that?
Yeah, we're so I will say we're spending more time and energy talking about like what good instruction is. So versus putting a kid on device every single,
Day.
And so that's where a lot of our energy has been. But it's yes, there has been conversation about, creating some structure around expectation.
Is that something that maybe at some point down the line, as we learn a little better about where we are, that maybe we want to consider?
Yeah, yes, and I would also say I think down the line, I think we should think deeply about, and we will, about any recommendation, what the recommendation looks like that we bring to the board in regards to the saturation of devices, in particular at the elementary grade band.
Yeah.
And so, like, just changing the structure in and of itself a little bit, and how we kind of look at it. So those are conversations that we're having as we want to keep students plugged in. Like, technology is important. It's a resource. At the same time, we want them to unplug as well. So it's a balancing act of how do I use the device to enhance the learning. The most impactful thing in the classroom is the teacher with high quality, instruction that's being delivered. So.
Yeah, I concur. The most stressful aspect of working as a teacher today is me having to constantly redirect students from the distraction of their cell phone. Like, that is the bane of my existence every day in class. And I've had to figure out ways to get creative. Actually, you know what? Today is the first day ever during my second period that no kid picked up their phone during the day. And it's because I threatened them with a paragraph per correction. Handwritten paragraph per correction. Yeah, because they're going to AI that thing. So yeah, you got to handwrite. I wanted to acknowledge board member Aretta Baldwin for walking in right now as well. Yeah, you're here. You're here. So I hear us. Is there any additional board member Briscoe Brown?
Yeah, just in the second full paragraph, again, I think we might have left out some words where it says all devices must be out of sight and turned off during the entire school day. What it should do is match a couple of paragraphs down, while on school system premises. Too far. Back up. That long paragraph is the one I'm interested in.
While on school-provided transportation?
Yeah, before that first iteration of while on school-provided transportation, I think it should say while on school system premises, on school-provided transportation, and or on school buses. And you see it does that one sentence down where it says photographing, audio recording, or videotaping is strictly prohibited while on school system premises, school-provided transportation, or on school buses. Those just need to match. Because we didn't actually say on school system premises above. So just,
Okay, we'll take that out.
is that making sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Make sure the language
Yeah,
matches.
just cut and paste from 7 lines down into the 4th line. just to make it match.
Okay.
Board Chair Mitchell, is there anything that you would like to add or have any commentary on?
I don't at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think are we good to move this forward with the recommended changes?
Yes.
Yes for me?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and so the next three policies that we will review will be the policies that are for first read for this committee. This is JCDAG. Let me pull it up. So this policy is a policy on bullying. This is to add language to align with Senate Bill 351, Protecting Georgia's Children on Social Media Act of 2024, which requires adoption of student social media policy by April the 1st, 2026. And so as we begin this review of the policy, we are in line with their requirements. This policy strikes the language at the top around bullying, and it puts it clearly. Oh, I was listening to my, oh, okay. Like, it puts it clearly for clarification around bullying is defined as an act, and it spells out what the language around bullying is. It adds in the term applies to acts which occur on school property, on school vehicles, at designated school bus stops, or at school-related functions or activities, including but not limited to extracurricular activities, or by use of data or software that is accessed through a computer, computer system, computer network, or other electronic technology of Atlanta Public School. Such terms include acts of cyberbullying that originate on school property or involve the use of school equipment, including but not limited to acts that occur within, and it talks about online activity. It defines cyberbullying, which means bullying that involves the use of electronic communication devices and services, including but not limited to cellular phones, cameras, computers, social media platforms, text messages, chat platforms, and internet sites. Also spells out bullying around extracurricular activities, which means APS sponsor activities in which students take part on a volunteer basis. It talks about the parent, which clarifies a parent means a person who has legal authority to act on behalf of a minor child as a natural or adoptive parent or a legal guardian. And then it defines school equipment, which means any computer or computer networking equipment, technology or technology-related device or service or communication system or service that is operated, owned, leased, and made available to students by any school within APS or by the Atlanta Board of Education that is used for transmitting, receiving, accessing, viewing, hearing, downloading, recording, or storing electronic communication. Defines the term transmit, adds in language at the bottom, any report or retaliation for reporting bullying, harassment, or intimidation will also be investigated and addressed as called for this policy in accordance with school procedures. Strikes out the language around parents, legal guardians shall be notified upon a finding that a student has committed an act of bullying or has been a victim of an act of bullying. Adds in language at the very bottom, upon a finding by a school administrator that a student has committed an act of bullying or is a target or suspected victim of bullying, the administrator or designee shall notify the parent, guardian by telephone or written, including electronic notices Such notification may include referrals to resources and services both for the students who have committed bullying offenses or are targets or suspected victims of bullying. This, again, is for first read for the Policy Review Committee.
Thank you so much. My only, at the very end, upon a finding by a school administrator that a student has committed an act, that line there, is there a reason that we're waiting for findings to notify a parent of the issue as opposed to upon filing of a complaint?
So this tracks the language of the statute.
Gotcha.
Nothing in this prevents us from notifying a parent when an issue has arisen before there is a finding. What this says is, regardless of what you do before, if there is a finding, you've got to tell that parent.
Got you.
And I think that's a concern that maybe parents were saying, we didn't know.
Yeah.
And that was a protective mechanism to make sure that they would be informed by their schools.
I guess I'm curious, are there any thoughts from the committee to add language on top of the state's minimal requirement that we would notify parents upon a complaint? I guess for me, like, I would hate to, I'm just thinking as a parent, you know, if my child was in either the perpetuator of cyberbullying or the victim of cyberbullying, that something could be going on and I don't know about it until they do an investigation. I don't know, for me, that would feel like there's a whole process going on that I'm just unaware of as a parent until it's all said and done.
So just parsing this all out, to speak to the suspected victim of bullying, it does say upon a finding that a student is a target or suspected victim of bullying, we're supposed to be telling the parent or guardian. So that, when I read that, that says to me, I don't need to have concluded my investigation. I don't need to have determined that bullying has occurred. All I need to know is that this child might be a victim of bullying for me to tell that parent. For a alleged perpetrator of bullying, that language doesn't quite go as far as you're wanting it to go or suggesting that it go. But I'm also trying to think of what does it look like in the ground when school administrators do get reports of bullying that they need to investigate? Are parents notified that that investigation is happening just on a day-to-day, like regular course of business? And I don't know the answer to that.
I think the intent of this statement is to make sure from a compliance standpoint, frankly, that we report the findings to the parent. It's the assurance of reporting the findings. Generally speaking, a lot of times the report of bullying, may actually come from a parent. So, half the time or more, and I'm just going to that number, but I know when I see things come across it, a lot of time it's a parent that's articulating on the behalf of a child. So that report actually comes in from a parent. So you obviously know at that point the parent is engaged. In other cases, from an operational standpoint, the school administrator is going to notify the parent. I'm conducting an investigation, but this is the requirement to notify about the results of the investigation. So no, you don't have to wait. No, you don't wait till the end to notify the parent. You notify the parent, hey, I'm doing an investigation. But this is the assurance that they're going to get the actual report.
And so I guess for me, that being said, do we want to have language that says we are not waiting until the conclusion of an investigation to notify parents, as per the law says by minimum we should do? Or do we want to leave it open to the administration on the regulatory side?
I do think the language makes a distinction between the victim, the alleged victim, and the alleged perpetrator. It looks like that in the statute, the alleged victim gets more, and the parents of the alleged victim get more and earlier communication than the parents of the alleged perpetrator. And I want to ask two questions about that. The first one is, would there ever be a situation in which an alleged, it would not be safe to let the alleged perpetrator or their parents know that they were being investigated? And that said, if my child has been accused of bullying, I want to know about it as early as possible, because we are going to have a conversation at home. And I am going to be fully active and fully cooperative in that investigation. And honestly, there is not anything the school system can do to my child if they've been a bully that is as bad as what's going to happen to them at home.
You know, you do.
I think I got a little intimidated. That mama bear just came out like.
That is something up with which we would not put, so.
I mean, to your point about, might there be circumstances when it would be counterproductive to inform the parent or a child that they're being investigated for committing bullying? Or, you know, that not every parent is going to necessarily react like you would react to that kind of information. I can also imagine a situation where it might be dangerous to inform the alleged perpetrator or their parent when they receive a report, before a school has the opportunity to at least do some preliminary investigation and maybe put in a safety plan. So I want to make room for those kinds of situations as well, with those school leaders knowing their communities better than.
Board Member Baldwin, Board Chair Mitchell, Student Rep Smith, do you all have any thoughts?
I really like the idea of a safety plan regarding notification of parental figures for perpetuators of bullying, because there is wording in here around, like, if someone is being bullied and there's like changes happening for like their schooling, as far as like they're getting in trouble or they don't feel comfortable speaking up or things like that. So I just definitely think there should be a safety plan put in place to protect victims of bullying.
So
Nina, oh, go ahead. I was,
yeah,
we're probably
how
same.
about we add some language in that, right at the beginning of that paragraph that says upon finding of a school administrator. How about we add language that says, upon receipt of a complaint of bullying, the school, and I'm just speaking extemporaneously, so please feel free to clean up and make it more logical. The school will implement safety measures as appropriate.
I think that's good.
You have some thoughts, Dr. Johnson?
No, I think it's right. Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add, there's a ton of nuance in these things, like, because each one is so individual, so different. The one thing I will say in general is about the notification, like the number one charge responsibility we have is to make sure the students are safe. You know what I mean? Like, parents want their children educated, but you almost assume that they're going to be safe as a byproduct of sinning. So when I start to think about like how this unfolds, and I go back and put on my principal cap, you try to be methodical, but you also try to be as efficient as you possibly can in getting to an answer, because you don't want to go multiple days with a child feeling unsafe without resolution, a parent feeling unsafe without resolution, and vice versa.
Understood. Board Member Baldwin.
So I'm aligned with where we net out. I like the addition that we've added, that in terms of upon completion, that someone will know what's happened. That has been some issues that I've heard about in the past, is people felt things were kind of unresolved. And so having that in there is good. I am definitely a fan of safety. I just want to make sure that we don't put too much detail or too much into the policy that it restricts the application and the ability for, as Nina said, each school to manage the situation based on their community and the individual situation. So I believe that I'm aligned with where we are right now. I think that gives us enough cover, but I'm a data nerd, not a policy wonk.
It's all right. We need us all. All right. Given those recommended changes, is the committee prepared to move this policy forward?
Yes.
A yes for me.
Yes.
And to be clear, this is on first read?
First read.
Okay.
Policy committee be working. Yeah, that's how we do over here. Come on. The kids can't wait. Kids can't wait.
Okay.
All right, Ms.
So-
Barnett.
Our next policy for review for first read is policy IFBG, Internet Acceptable Use. This is also another policy that aligns with the legislative State Board 351, Protecting Georgia's Children on Social Media Act. Yes. It requires the adoption for social media policy. Is that the one, or did we?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
AI and social media.
AI, and so, yes, and so we also added language to this policy around AI. If you scroll down to the bottom of where it says internet safety, you'll see on 6, we added the language for cyberbullying. That's numeral 6. On the next page, you will see where there's a lot of information that has been added around APS may provide access to approved artificial intelligence tools to students, faculty, staff, and other individuals for educational and administrative purposes only. The superintendent is authorized to develop guidelines for students and staff use of AI. Added language around social media access. Describes the social media platform, which means an online forum that allows an account holder to create a profile, upload posts, view and listen to posts from mutual connections and interact publicly or privately with other account holders and users. Further clarifies the accept as provided below, which provides students that are prohibited from accessing social media platforms using computer equipment, communication services, or internet access provided, owned, leased, or made available by the Atlanta Board of Education. It clarifies students shall be permitted to access social media platforms only as instructed by school personnel for the exclusive purpose of accessing and utilizing age-appropriate educational resources under the supervision of such school personnel and during the course of a school-related activity. This policy also adds the language that parents and guardians may request information from school personnel regarding which social media platforms have been or are intended to be access for educational purposes under the exceptions outlined in this policy, and may prohibit their child from accessing one or more social media platforms during these educational activities. This policy, again, is for first read for the Policy Review Committee.
Board Member Briscoe Brown.
Can somebody give me an example of why a student would need to access a social media platform
Ooh, I
for
could do that.
educational purposes?
Easy.
Specifically a social media platform.
Easy. So right now I have my students reading a book called How We Can Win by author Kimberly Latrice Jones, who is also an Atlanta resident and APS parent. She has a speech that went viral shortly after the murder of George Floyd, where she talked about how the game of Monopoly is very similar. She used the game of Monopoly as an analogy to explain the Black experience and the Black relationship with the economy in America. So in order for me to show my students that, A, you got to understand that YouTube is considered a social media platform. So everything that's on YouTube is technically on a social media platform. So if I'm going to YouTube to show it to my students, or if I go to Instagram to show it to my students, or if I go to TikTok to show something to my students, that would be a perfect case use of social media in the classroom. And I do it all the time.
Except in that case, you, the teacher, are going and students are not. And
Correct,
this is, students are prohibited.
But if I were to have my students do an assessment of her speech or her soliloquy, they would probably go onto social media or YouTube or whatever to get the video to then be able to respond to the video.
Okay. I feel that's a good explanation. I appreciate that.
Board Member Baldwin had wanted to
I have
chime in.
another example, not necessarily as in terms of in the classroom, but it also mentioned activities. And there are a lot of times when we're doing fundraising or when we're trying to encourage participation, where social media is a good platform to do that. So while that's outside of the classroom, that is specifically around activities, but a lot of our activities that aren't considered tier one, so football or basketball, right? So the wrestling squad, the dance team, future business leaders, future farmers, they may want to use that to communicate with their colleagues, classmates, and larger community to encourage participation.
Yeah. I even stream many of my classes on Instagram. So if a kid missed the class, they might be watching the class via IG to catch up on something that they missed from class the day before. So it's a lot of, I think, different uses. We just in a different day and age, but it's basically where we're able to put long form video content that I think benefits students.
Okay. That's what I needed to know. I don't have children currently in the system, so just that's a relatively new
Yeah.
use of social media. And my only other question is at the end of the inserted blue section there, it says parents may prohibit their child from accessing one or more social media platforms during these educational activities. This sort of goes back to what you were saying earlier. I assume that part of the superintendent developing guidelines, which will make parents aware of that and give them a way to do so. That if I don't want my child on YouTube or Instagram for any reason, then you've got to find another way to provide my child that speech.
We're just gonna have to
I don't want
download
my
those
child on
videos.
YouTube. Yeah, I don't want them looking at the next video that rolls up once the speech concludes. So, but we have to have a mechanism for that.
I agree. Student Rep Smith, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, but just to advocate for the use of social media, and the Student Advisory Council, we are consistently asked how can we make sure that students are aware of information of things that are going on in APS, and it's social media is the answer every time.
Board Member Baldwin?
So I just have a question to say, is there a space, and if this is the place for staff and staff policy around their use of social media? Just something to consider. And not outside of educational spaces. I know there have been some instances that have come up where a staff member was inappropriately on social media doing something. I'm just curious, does staff usage, is that included in here? Is that somewhere else? And just want to make sure that that's covered.
We actually do have a board policy, GAHC, titled Social Media Communication, and because it's a G policy, it applies to our personnel.
Excellent.
And it does set expectations about professional and appropriate use.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. Is there support to move this policy forward?
Yes.
Yes, for me.
Yes.
Batting-
Yes for Erica Mitchell. I don't know if you heard me, sorry.
All right, we're batting 1,000 so far. All right, last policy.
Okay. Our final policy for today is policy BBBC, Board Member Development Opportunities. And this policy comes before for first read just to revise the language that could potentially impact local travel reimbursements for using rideshare services. You will see on the first page, towards the bottom, it adds in additional language where you see the board shall reimburse. If you look at the last sentence, it says, additionally, the board shall reimburse members local travel, if any, to board-related special events. It strikes out the language, travel arrangements and reimbursements shall be made in accordance with regulations GARH, employee leaves and absences, professional learning leave, travel, and expenses. When you look at the next section on budget, it adds in the language, let me make sure that we look at, it takes out the language on this second sentence under budget, the maximum amount each member may incur on an annual basis for, it scratches out the language out of town. So it will read annual basis for travel. Then it adds in each board member must stay within his or her annual allotted travel budget. This is also a policy that is up for first read.
Yeah, Miss.
I got serious problems with this. I'll just say it out. That if the point here is to reimburse rideshare, it needs to say that. Under this sentence as written, I could claim gas and mileage for my own car to travel to a special event. I don't think that's going to be permitted by the IRS. And I think that my driving to an event, my driving to the APS Awards is a choice that I make. I can also choose rideshare, but I think it is my responsibility and my fiduciary duty as a board member to get myself there. We pay for parking typically for board members, which I very much appreciate, but I think it is our responsibility to get ourselves to places within the city of Atlanta. I also think board-related special events is way too broad. I think that could be construed as my using rideshare to get myself to the holiday program at BAMO. Is that a board-related special event? I'm a citywide board member. I go to every school every year. Am I going to be able to take rideshare to every school every year and claim that that's a board-related special event and you should pay me for that? I think in a time when we are watching every penny and when board members need to set the example for watching every penny, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to say that a board member needs to be able to get themselves there at their expense. And if they choose to use rideshare, that's their prerogative. If they choose to drive, then we will provide parking at whatever ridiculous expense it is for the, I'm using the APS Awards because we just did that one. And parking is expensive. But I'm even guessing that we bought parking for all board members, and then some might have taken another way of getting there. And so we ended up having to pay for the parking regardless, which is a double dip. I think, and obviously this is not something that, you know, I won't be here to object or to take advantage of this, but I think this is, quite frankly, irresponsible.
Okay. So I have a couple. I agree with Board Member Briscoe Brown on some of the points made. I think if we're going to say board-related special events, that we probably need to do like an EG there and add some context around that. Here's my personal feelings. My personal feelings are this: we have an allotment of a particular amount that each board member could spend for travel purposes every year. And my thoughts are, now, me personally, I'm probably never taking rideshare. I like driving, so I'm gonna drive. I'm driving, right? But I could also see a world where some board members, especially if you live on one particular part of town and the event that we're doing is like way on the other side of town, maybe there's some other activities that you want to do while you're there, and so it behooves you to not be a driver on that day. I could see a world where I personally don't have a problem with the board member being reimbursed for using rideshare, so long as the spends that they make are a part of their travel budget for the year, which by all means they have the right to use. And specifically if they're doing board business, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I am with it.
I think Aretta feels away.
I hear the logic of you both, but ultimately, it needs to be tightened up. It's pretty loose in terms of how it reads. It tying to your individual budget gives me a little bit more grace in that space. But the board has received or will be having a larger salary, so there is more compensation in that space. I just want to make sure that we're being responsible with taxpayer dollars. That's really how it boils down, and that there's little gray area in this space for interpretation.
I would call that ripe for abuse. I'll go farther than gray area. I think for someone who is looking for ways to minimize their own expenses. I think if it's a board-related special event, it's your job to get yourself there. And if you choose not to get yourself there because APS is not reimbursing your rideshare, then you have a much deeper problem with the way you are doing your job, which might need to be addressed.
I have a question. So is this just from your perspective, what about the travel, like in what instances would it be proper to use the travel budget?
Typically, our travel budget is only for out-of-town travel. It is a flat amount of money that each of us gets to pay travel expenses while on official business or attending conferences or conventions that are directly related to our responsibilities as board members. One example of that would be the Georgia School Boards Association convention that occurs in Savannah in June every year. Our expenses because it is out of town, our expenses to go there, to travel there, are paid. Our hotel expenses and our registration expenses are paid, and then we get a per diem to cover incidental expenses like meals that aren't covered by the convention or that kind of thing.
We also do get paid mileage. So if we chose to drive to Savannah, we'd be reimbursed mileage. Or if we chose to fly, we also could be reimbursed the flight cost as well.
But that's because it's out-of-town travel.
Right.
And I think that other APS employees are in fact limited to out-of-town travel for reimbursement as well. I don't think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any other APS employees get reimbursed for local travel. If you, or if Ken Bradshaw goes to the APS awards, I don't think you're reimbursed for your travel there and back.
But also, we allot a driver for our superintendent.
No. Well, but
Oh,
we
you
don't-
declined the driver? Is that what it was?
Before we
Okay,
go too
okay,
far down that
okay.
rabbit hole, I also want to highlight that the reason why we're going to these conferences is because we are required by law to have a certain number of training hours.
Yes.
Okay, and so in order to get those training hours, you go to
Yeah.
conventions, you have to pay the travel fees, you have to pay the registration fees. So that's the other reason why we're traveling, is because we have to. We can get some of it locally, but you are required to have a certain number of training hours. I believe it's 9 when you're already on the board, and it's 15 hours a year annually for your first year.
And further to what you were just saying, senior cabinet doesn't have drivers. That's
right.
If, again, I go back to if Lisa Bracken is going to the APS awards, she gets to get herself there.
Right.
And I just,
That-
y'all do what you want, but I have this is contrary to the spirit of board service.
Okay, I received that. That being said, I think it's probably a lot more conversation that we need to have. I do understand that Board Member Johnson has something to add. My energy is, it's probably, let me allow Board Member Johnson to speak, and then we'll go from there. Board Member Johnson?
Yes, good afternoon. Thanks for letting me pop in. I think probably my question or wondering is why it would be attached to the professional development policy connected with the board, because if it's saying a special event, I think those are two separate items, and I'm along with my colleagues in terms of like the trainings and those things that we have to do in understanding the reimbursement of travel. This might not be the right policy to address that matter in. When we get to the other business, there is a financial procedures document that I wanted to talk to the committee about that might be a better space for us to raise it. And I will say maybe an alternative is if people choose to do, if we did have our parking reimbursed, and that is something that is a part of a local policy. And so if members choose rideshare, maybe it's up to the amount of the reimbursement so that it's equitable across the board.
I think I agree with you. I guess my ask of the committee would be, are we willing to table this policy? Let's hear from Board Member Johnson about the policy she is proposing that is going to be in other business, because I think that might give us a different canon or lens to look at this policy with once we hear from Board Member Johnson. Is there a willingness to table this?
I'm all for tabling it. I'm not willing at this point to move it on for first read.
Okay, I'm willing to table as well. Chair Mitchell?
Yes, I'm good to table it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Almost 1,000.
I almost had it. I agree that this is something that should be discussed. So that was our last policy for review, and we can move on to your discussion item.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Board Member Johnson, you have a financial policies and procedures worksheet that you wanted to discuss for other business. I'd love to give you the floor to discuss what you have.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Again, thank you all so much for the hard work Policy Committee is doing today. I wanted to bring forth an item that has come out of the Board Development Committee, and we recognize the proper protocol is to bring it before the Policy Committee for review and discussion. And it is really around the board regulation, the board office financial procedures. And so one thing that has come out over the last few months is that there is no formal procedure in writing for the board and board office financial management. And so one of the things I just want to lift up, and definitely, Areta, I would offer you to chime in kind of just with the spirit and purpose as we were coming out of our board development committee, is that you'll see in that very first paragraph of the document that we intend to lead by example and be strong models of good stewardship for public funds. And so we're hoping that we can put these procedures in place and have some kind of governing document going forward when it comes to our budget and spending. This document does touch on travel, but it sounds like there's some opportunities to potentially expound upon that based on the conversation that we've had today. But leaning in more to how does the board govern itself when it comes to vendors, when it comes to contracts that are beyond our current board office approved budget, and making sure that we're all aligned and very much informed about what policies guide us, how we align with what's happening across the district. I did hear earlier about some state changes, so I have questions, Nina, if that would change our threshold amounts or any approaches. But my recommendation would be, since the board office budget is significantly smaller in relation to the school district budget, that we really strongly consider having some safeguards in place so that we can be a model of good stewardship.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us a summation of the attention here. I wanted to acknowledge that not all committee members have a physical copy of this worksheet yet, albeit some of the things, significant things that I see in the policy that I think are just worth noting is a change in the board chair's ability to make spends up to $50,000 without approval from the full board is now being moved to a $10,000 threshold, and that any purchase above $10,000, or in the worksheet it says $10,000 to $49,999.99, will require 3 written quotes. I'm also curious, Board Member Johnson, are there any other kind of changes being proposed in this policy that you feel are worth noting as well?
So I just want to add to that, we approve our budget every year, and so the policy really is above any additional spending above that agreed upon amount for the board office for the year, to make sure that the full board, we've gone through the proper procedures with the 3 quotes, and that the full board is aware and is able to weigh in on any of those additional expenditures. And so I just want to make sure that is specifically noted. And then the other area is travel. We wanted to make sure that we notated the specific dollar amount that board members have in regards to travel. And the ask is that if there are conferences and items that are above and beyond that, we have an opportunity to review that also as a full board, again, in the spirit of just transparency and good stewardship of public dollars.
So what I'm hearing from you, Board Member Johnson, is that if there be a case that a board member has exhausted their allotment for travel, that there would be an allowance for additional spend upon approval from the board.
Correct.
Okay. I don't hate it. Any feedback from my colleagues?
I'm only just seeing this like right now, so I'm really just looking through it very quickly. And thank you, first of all. This is impressive and shows a lot of thought and effort, and I'm guessing also consultation with administration. So with specifically with Nina and probably with Lisa Bracken as well. So thank you very much. I like this a lot. Since I know Nina's involved, I think I know the answer to this question, but I just want to confirm that this language has been cross-checked with other policies regarding not being involved in contracting, with any other policies that might affect these activities.
Yeah, that's why you'll see the language around, for instance, contracting, that any bidding or anything has to be done in consultation with procurement, because we don't want the board intimately involved in the contracting process like that.
Okay. No, I think this is wonderful. And again, as I think I said earlier, we as a board have a responsibility to provide an example of good stewardship of funds, and I think this is definitely this definitely emphasizes that responsibility, that fiduciary duty, and it makes clear some actions that we have been doing more informally, but I think committing them to regulation is important.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot here that I absolutely support. Definitely support the spirit of this initiative. One of the things that I saw in the policy that we just tabled, that if we were to kind of consolidate the spirit of what we were looking to do, is I do see a world where there's a gap in participation from board members for local to Atlanta conferences and events. So take GSBA's event that happens in Cobb, for example, right? It's not that far, but it's far enough for some people, right? So like, I live in the Southeast side. If I want to drive up to Cobb for that conference, we're talking at least an hour commute from my house to get up there. Other districts that are all local to Atlanta, their board members are there, staying at the conference and attending the conference. What we find is that many board members don't participate when it is that local, when you can't get any travel reimbursement. You can't stay at the hotel and be reimbursed. You can't, and you also don't get mileage or anything like that. So basically the onus is on you for both your time and your treasure. And so then we see a gap in participation. So for me, I think under the premise of folks staying within their allotment for travel for the year, I think if you wanted to go stay at Cobb to be on site at that conference, I don't personally take an issue with that. And so I guess I would advocate for some openness to reimbursements for local conferences. Yes, ma'am.
I would take issue with that, with someone using taxpayer dollars to stay somewhere locally. I mean, it could be an hour commute to come here some days, depending on traffic. So I push back on that. I also push back on the reason why people may not participate in the GSBA conference may not be because their travel is not being reimbursed. They may not see it as a valuable use of their time. There could be a number of reasons. I know the lawyers on the board tend to go because there's always a legal session that they can get training hours for. Honestly, it's not something that you may need to go to every year. In terms of feeling like your time is being useful, you may find that it would be more useful to go somewhere else where different information is provided. GSBA, if you know Georgia, is made up of a lot of small districts. And so while there's a lot of really good information provided there, it's not always an exact translation to Atlanta Public Schools. So I just push back that the reason why people may not go is because they're not getting their travel reimbursed. And if that's the case, then I would challenge them to come have a conversation with me.
Yeah. I just want to be clear, like, using GSBA is just anecdotal. It's definitely not like the threshold. Board Member Briscoe Brown.
I agree with Arata. I mean, it took me 40 minutes to get here today. By the end of the day tomorrow, I will have driven to far southeast or southwest Atlanta half a dozen times in this job. It's part of the job, and I think going to events, going to schools, going places is part of the job. I'm aware that the IRS does not reimburse someone for going to their place of business, for instance. Will not allow mileage reimbursement for going to their place of business. Certainly, this would be a place of business for people who work in this building, but, you know, I'd argue that our definition of place of business, regardless of the IRS's, is somewhat wider than that. I'm not expecting to be reimbursed for travel to go to breakfast with the board at Jackson High School tomorrow.
Right.
But that's just about exactly as far for me as you're driving from your house to the hotel where GSBA takes place. It's within 3 miles, 2 or 3 miles of the same distance. I think we are in a time of financial challenge in this district. And I think that we as board members have a responsibility to provide an example of good, solid stewardship of taxpayer funds. And I don't think paying board members to go somewhere to do their job is responsible stewardship of those funds. You can tell I feel strongly about this one. I'm not going to be around to vote on it, so y'all do what you want to do. But this is really a bridge too far for me. Also, to the point Arata made earlier, board members have voted themselves a significant raise, which puts this job into much more into the realm of living wage all on its own than it was when I started on this board and made $15,000 a year for many years. I don't think that a board member who's making as much as y'all will be come January is unable to afford to get themselves in their own car to a board event. I think that should just be part of the job and part of the reason that you're getting paid the big bucks. I'm kidding. I am kidding.
I don't know what world $35,500 is a livable wage in the city of Atlanta.
It's a lot further than 15 or even 22.
And it's higher than the average neighborhood household income of my neighborhood. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
I think that there are certain responsibilities that one takes on when one runs for board. And one of them is to get yourself to places where you need to be. And I don't think we should be paying for Uber for people to do that.
Understood. I think that's good feedback. Board Chair Mitchell.
Yes, I just want to chime in 1 second. First of all, thank you for bringing these policies and recommended changes to the surface. I will say regarding the travel policy, as elected officials, yes, we do receive a salary. We do receive certain type of initiatives that help us, offset certain things that we have to do. But it is our responsibility, it is our job to get to where we're gonna go, but regardless of what site it is locally. I know that the parking was paid for. That's an incentive, right? But we also, as elected officials, raise campaign funds that can offset some of this cost. And I'm not saying that board members should to raise money to do their school board job, but you're elected and you have campaign funds that can utilize for board office business. So that's another option as well. when we're talking about how do we get reimbursed for local travel. We don't get mileage. We do get parking reimbursement, right? Or parking is paid for. So with rideshare and Uber or whatever you want to call it, that's a very gray area and it's very broad because who designate what events you should take an Uber to, or I mean, a rideshare, I'm not gonna call out Uber, or not. And what's the guidelines or boundaries or parameters around that? Those are not set. So it makes it very broad to interpret it how you want to. But our day-to-day as board members, we are supposed to get ourselves to these different sites that we were elected to do this job for. So that's just my only takeaway from that policy.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from my colleagues, I'm hearing a lot from my colleagues. I'm hearing a lot from my colleagues. So look, I'm looking forward to taking the worksheet language and seeing how we can infuse that into policy for us to take up next month. And I guess before we adjourn, Board Member Baldwin.
I just want to formally thank Jessica, Ken, and Nina and the Board Development Policy for working hard to put that together to help just remove some of the gray area and add some structure. So I appreciate the work that has been done in this, and I appreciate you for taking it into consideration. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Also, just want to give a big shout out and thank you to student rep Ms. Brooks Smith, representing KIPP Collegiate. Today is whether or not you realize it, today is a historic moment to have student voice on the dais. Atlanta Public Schools can say they have an active teacher and active student voice on the dais on a regular basis. And I think that's a powerful thing. I'm so grateful for your input and your courage. Folks were asking, oh, what if you have to, encourage her to talk? We did not have to do that. You were ready. So thank you so much, student rep Brooke Smith, for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, Mr. Wilborn, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Do we have a date for January's meeting to share? January 15th at 12 o'clock or 12:15? We put 1 o'clock? I don't love that. Okay. So January 15th, 1 p.m., we will see you all here next year. Also want to give a big shout out to two of my colleagues who are the OGs, the veterans in the building, Board Member Briscoe Brown and Board Member Baldwin. Thank you both so much. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Board Member Briscoe Brown. I got to go back to school.
I already did the farewell address, otherwise known as the mic drop, last week. But I do want to thank Board Member Brooks and all my colleagues, Nina Gupta, Sandra Murray, Carolyn Barnett, everybody, for your input on this committee over the last 12 years. This has been a consistent assignment for me since I was sworn into the board, and I really feel like it dovetailed well with both my skills and my interests, and we have done good work. We have cleaned up the policies. We have dramatically improved community and stakeholder engagement. On input to those policies. I think for the first time in APS history, we had an elementary school student who helped us design a policy on dress code back in the day. Y'all remember her. We have had input, really meaningful input from the Student Advisory Council, which will be even more so now that we have a representative here at our meetings. And we have made APS work more legally, ethically, and efficiently in service to all our kids. And so I just want to thank everybody who has ever had a part in that. Also want to give a shout out to Erica Long, who is not with us today, but who has had a huge impact on this committee and on how we operated. So thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you. That being said, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, third and fourth. Motion to adjourn is approved. Y'all have a good day.